I was reading through your reflection and watched your video, and I'm just wondering, as I read your reflection, what are your thoughts about the student agency goal setting piece you did with your student?
I like it. I think that it made him feel like I cared about him and that I was invested in him, and he was much more willing to work for me after we did that part.
Good. As I was reading the reflection, I read that he has a lot of trouble maybe connecting with adults.
He does.
And that maybe he already feels a little bit like school has failed him, or he has failed school.
He gets in trouble a lot, so he feels like he's just a moving target, and he's kind of adopted that role. He thinks that all the adults think he's a troublemaker, so he acts like a troublemaker. And really, his mom feels the same way. She feels like he's a walking target, and that they're basically just biding their time until he can graduate high school. So that's a long 6 years for him.
Yeah, that's a long time. So as you were working, I know you did this with lots of students, but when you were doing it specifically with this student, what went well in the video or through this process, and why do you think that it went well?
He didn't make a joke of it. He took it seriously. I explained to him that this was for my school and that it was a project for me. And I think that he respected the process, and I was really impressed with him for doing that. We set some behavior goals, we set some academic goals, and he worked really hard for me. Now, he did not work hard anywhere else in the building. And he did subsequently get in sufficient enough trouble that he got sent off campus. But that was not until the project was over. So for the duration of my project, his behavior was on point, his effort was on point.
Good. Yeah, I read somewhere in here that you said that he is back and forth in ISS and alternative schools, and that he works really hard for you. So how could we transfer what you did with him across the board, so no matter who he's with, he can be successful?
We're gonna have to really work, as a staff, on relationship building. I think that there's a misconception that if you get too close to the students, that they won't respect you or they won't respect boundaries anymore. And I've heard that over and over again from other teachers. But I'm seeing the opposite. The more that I relate to them, the more that I ask questions, even little things like, I know that one of my students' little brother had appendicitis, and just asking him, how's your little brother feeling? He smiles, he's happy to know that I care enough about his outside of school situation. I think we just have to take some time at the beginning and get to know our kids so that we know the questions to ask and they don't feel like they're just a test score to us.
So through this process, what could you, or do you wish that you could refine?
I wish that I had done all of it much sooner. I wonder if this particular student that I focused on, if I had spent the whole year doing little check-ins with him and meeting with him specifically about behavior progress and specifically about his other class progress and goals, I wonder if it might have ended a little differently. I wonder if maybe he would have felt more comfortable to come and talk to me about whatever was causing him so much anxiety he had to act out.
I'm glad you said anxiety. I was wondering, a lot of times when a student becomes accustomed to being the bad student or bad behavior, they do it quickly, so they get a fast kick out of the class, or it's efficient. He's out of whatever situation, and I didn't know if you thought it was because of a learning problem, or if it was anxiety, if it was a sensory issue, like too much going on.
I think with this particular kid, it's a bunch of different things. So he is diagnosed dyslexic, and he went through a quasi-dyslexic program, but because of his behaviors, he was just kind of exited. He didn't really finish the program. He's quite illiterate. He has the skill, the reading skill, to read words on about a third grade level, but he does not have comprehension even on a first grade level. And so he does not like reading. He will do everything in his power to avoid reading, and he particularly dislikes And I had announced to the class the day before this last incident that we would be map testing and how important the map test was. And he raised his hand and said, so should I be absent that day? And we just kind of laughed it off, and, cause I know he's never absent.
Right.
And I said, you know what, Kyrie, or whatever, that might be a good choice for you. Well, he wasn't absent, and he came to school and acted out in a way that he knew would get him sent home because he did not wanna take that test.
Yeah, I wanna talk about that in just a little bit, like maybe, how we can better serve him when he does return to your classroom. Cause I saw a lot of things on the video, and then you even reflected that you knew what your strengths were, like you knew that naming the student agency plan, building a SMART goal, meeting with the students, also I say students cause I saw you meet with a lot of them, building the rapport with the students, meeting frequently over a plan and the goals. You know, you're very learner driven and you have a lot of background in data, and so you're always starting at a spot, stopping, redirecting, reteaching, and then coming back and continuing where they need to go. So I just was wondering, like, when he does come back to the classroom, have you thought of a plan, or have you thought of what the next step is for him to come in and be successful?
I think I just need to sit down and recenter with him. So start the goal planning all over again from that day. Not talk about the past, not reflect on what went wrong, but on what we're gonna do to be successful from now until, what do we have, 40 days of school left. So how can we make the next 40 days successful? I think a lot of times that with our behavior kiddos, we focus too much on the past.
Yeah.
This is what you did, why did you do this, how can you learn from this? It's done. So how can we just move forward? What positive choices do we need to make instead of just reflecting on negative all the time?
Right, I think that's a good plan. I noticed whenever you were asking him questions about how can we, de-escalate his anger or his anxiety, or how could he become a better reader, he consistently said, I don't know. Or he could name one thing and then he'd say, I don't know. And so he was really looking for you to make that decision for him, and then still he didn't really have that toolkit. He still didn't have things that he would do to de-escalate himself. And so I was thinking that maybe he needs more think time, to think about what he should do, and maybe you could be his adult model on some of those strategies in building a toolkit for him, because it doesn't seem like to me that he's purposely being bad. It looks like he's telling you, I don't really know what to do when I get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering on his SMART goal, the timely part or the achievable part, if you and the student could build like bite-sized chunks of a goal that can be checked in daily or weekly, because he seems to be a student that needs to have a lot of check-ins, like.
I'm also kind of wondering if maybe it wouldn't be beneficial for him to stop by my room in the morning and just review what's your plan. And then he comes to me halfway through the day so we can review when he comes in halfway through the day. How did the first part of the day go? How are we gonna get to the second part of the day? And maybe just check in with him a couple times a day, because I think that he's a student that even at home, it's easier just to react to his behavior because it's so shocking.
Well, and I think that's what he's used to doing. So if I don't wanna read, or if I don't wanna take the test, I know how to get out of the situation really quickly.
He does, and he knows that I will put up with more from him because I love him.
Yeah.
So but he also knows what the words are to say to even get out of my class. He knows that I can't tolerate threats against other students. He knows that I can't tolerate threats against himself or my family, and that's his go-to when he really wants out. Because I don't, I think that he's got such a reputation that teachers are super quick, just get out, just go, and that's what he thrives on that. But I think it also feeds that misconception he has that he's worthless. And so every time a teacher reacts to him that way, or any adult reacts to him that way, whether it's the principal or the counselors or whatever, it just reinforces to him, yeah, I'm not worth anybody's time. And he kind of pushes back on me a little when I love on him and when I show care about him, and he has to really know that I'm serious.
Right.
And I don't know that he's ever had that.
Right. Yeah, I can kind of, even just being in your classroom in and out, I can see that he does test the waters to see what your reaction's gonna be, and if you're gonna, be okay with it, or if it's if you're gonna get upset quickly. I can tell that he,
And he's a
Yeah.
smart boy. He knows that I'm human and that every
Yeah.
day I'm not gonna be as patient as the other days. And he can get in on that real fast, and he can really press buttons that I didn't even know I had. But I think it's because I do want so much for him, and I feel like sometimes with him that I'm the only one doing the work, and I can't be the only one doing the work. I think that's a huge
Right.
part of student agency, is he has to take ownership.
that's one thing I really noticed, and I put down for like, providing a new lens is as an outsider that's not with him all the time. I was just wondering about, really modeling and developing strategies for him. He doesn't seem like he knows how he gets there or how to de-escalate. Every time he would tell you something, it would be like, go to somebody else's room or to leave the room. And I'm not saying that that's not a good way to go take a deep breath and calm down, but he doesn't have like calming down, strategies.
That kind of goes up with that question up there about his anxiety or just not knowing the material. And you asked, does he have sensory issues? I think he does have massive sensory issues that could really be at the root of his behavior. But we haven't for some reason tested him for these things.
Right.
And, we're at the end of this year now. I have talked to a behavior specialist to come in and kind of watch him, but with him not on campus, it's a moot point right now. But no, I think he gets very overwhelmed. He gets very, the noises becomes too much for him. He wants quiet. And when he goes across the hall to the other teacher's room,
He gets it.
it's just him and her. So he gets that quiet one-on-one time.
Well, that's what I kept noticing is he was wanting one-on-one. That would be the way he would tell you, like, I'll get angry and then I'll get to go to a quiet place. So I was wondering things, and you may have already tried them, like a calm down area with maybe like a sand timer where he just breathes, or you were telling him to do his ball up his fist, and then actually practice those. Like when you see him getting angry, you might say, I noticed that you're getting angry with so-and-so or about this. And then, kids pretty quick to react like, no, I'm mad about this. They'll tell you.
For sure.
But then you could remind him to go to like a place to calm down before it, try to
Yeah, I could
de-escalate.
definitely try some of
I
those
mean,
things.
you may have already tried it. I was just trying to think of some things that might keep him in class a little longer. And then I think because you do have great rapport with him, that by you modeling it, and I mean, he probably knows when you're getting upset.
Oh, for sure.
You could even model how you're gonna calm down.
Yeah.
Or what you're gonna do with
Mhm.
that situation. Seems like to me he doesn't really know how he gets there, to the
I don't
point.
think he does. I think that everything that he does is very primal and survival driven. Like, this is how he gets through the world, because outside of school is not ideal either.
Right.
And he does come here to be safe. He goes to the church to be safe, but at his safe places, he's very disrespectful of boundaries that are put in place. And I really feel that it's how he survives.
Right. So maybe positive reinforcement even when you see little bitty things.
Sure.
So he can feel the positive. Or even when you have a student that is doing something as simple as being courteous or respectful, you can say, thank you for being respectful about. I mean, he didn't learn his behavior overnight, so it'll probably take a little while, but I was just thinking, how can we reframe and think, when the student comes back to class, how might you support the student to move forward in the most effective ways to promote his growth and to make positive attention fast and predictable and efficient, just like he's used to the negative attention.
Like I've said a million times, I can only do so much inside my classroom, and I try hard, but I only have him that last half of the day. And typically, if he's gonna get sent out of class, it's gonna be the front half of the day. I think my frustration with him lies in the fact that I've asked repeatedly to move his schedule so that he can come to me first, so that he can at least have some reading before he gets kicked out of class for the day.
Right.
And that was the plan. They were gonna move him, and then he got sent off campus for the length of time. So
So maybe that's something that